What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Elite Fantasy Hoops with me, Mike Zakarian. Today, we're going to be focusing on Sorare a little bit, instituting a new video series, Ballin' on a Budget. And hey, if this is your first time here, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, go check out some of the other content we've done so far this offseason, breaking down both the underdog and Sorare side of things. But today, we are going to be taking a peek at the Sorare marketplace and doing our best to build out both the limited champion lineup and a limited contender lineup under a budget. Now, I try to do this exercise a few times a month just to get a feel for how the market is moving a little bit in different types of roster constructions that can help make us competitive as we head into year 3 on Sorare NBA. So for today's roster construction build, I gave myself 2 different barriers, both for champion and for contender. In the champion, we're going to do our best to build the most competitive lineup we can for under 150 United States dollars. And we're going to do the same thing for our contender lineups, except we're going to take $50 off the top. We're going to try to do it for under $100. And after watching this video, if you were like, hey, that was too easy, Mike, I need it harder, let's take some money off the top, let me know in the comments. Or we can make it easier and try to build out an even more super team. And of course, we'll do a video like this for rare as well. And then maybe super rare if I somehow hit the lottery and think that I can spend that kind of money. But let's get started. And what we're going to do before we do anything else is have a little bit of a conversation around an MVP. Because right now, we're going to start with the limited champion lineups first. And I had to go through this exercise almost every single game week last year because I always had the hardest time, especially when I first started out with Sorare, being like, hey, I can't afford to dive in the champion streets. So I'm going to continue to build out contender lineups. And as our good friend TST pointed out, what feels like 5 years ago when he was still doing videos, what's up, TST, is that it actually ends up being more expensive if you focus just on contender because the cap movement impacts your lineup construction way more in contender than it does in champion. And so, yes, maybe you're buying a $5 card here, a $2 card here, a $3 card here, but you're doing that each and every game week to try to make a competitive squad. Now, when you actually pony up and go buy yourself an MVP, you get to use that MVP week in and week out, and the movement in cap doesn't crush you as much because you get that freebie spot with your MVP. So the first thing I want to do here as I'm building out my limited champ is to try to see what MVP pops that doesn't crush you financially. Because again, we can't spend more than $150. So Victor Wembanyama going for 216 is not going to cut it. And Nikola Jokic going for 113 also makes it a little bit difficult because that would give us $1.50 to build out the rest of the roster. However, when we get to a cap of 56, we look at these next 2 guys. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's balling out for Greece right now as they're trying to qualify for the Olympics, and Joel Embiid. And now both of these guys had some injury frustrations this past year, especially towards the end of the season, but they also provide the same amount of ceiling as the first 2 guys that we looked at. Joel Embiid was an absolute crusher before he went down with that injury halfway through the NBA season last year. Now, of course, they're not as sexy as Victor Wembanyama, who's probably going to put up some 100 spots this year, but I do think you look at this is a third, I don't know, I can't do math. You're saving almost $200 between Victor and Joel Embiid, and same thing for Giannis as well. So I think when we get started, the 2 guys that I'm going to focus on building a lineup around today is Giannis and Joel Embiid. And I think I kind of want to focus on Joel Embiid a little bit more, at least for today, maybe because we're saving $7 extra and that helps out a little bit, but really just kind of flip a coin. I think Embiid has the higher upside with a lower floor because of his injury risk. Giannis is probably more consistently hitting doubles and triples, right? But we can do a quick scroll to look at some of these other guys, right? LeBron, obviously, I think his upside is a little bit capped because of his age and what the Lakers are going to be doing this year. God, I don't know. Luka, of course, is over 108. So you can absolutely drop coin on. And also, let's remember when I said we had a budget of 150 and I said you could get Jokic for 113 and only spend $2 other. That's bad math by Zakarian. So obviously you could spend a little bit more money. So you could make Jokic work if you wanted to. You also could do with Luka as well. And then you scroll down a little bit more. We see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Davis. You're getting a real big discount on Anthony Davis down here. And then we kind of drop off a little bit. Now, I think especially if we're using the budget that we are of $150, I want to buy an MVP that has a legit shot game week in and game week out of being the highest scoring player of the week. I don't know, like Anthony Davis probably does it 1 in every 15 game weeks. Tatum, same thing, maybe even a little bit lower, 1 in 20. Shea, 1 in 10, right? I think when you look at the top tier of these guys, right? Shout out top tier projections. Like Wemby's probably 1-4, 1-5. Jokic, right? I mean, it's just the consistency of those plays makes it more likely that you're going to compete to actually win some rewards versus like, well, I hope I get the Anthony Davis ceiling game because even if you don't get a full ceiling from Joel Embiid, you're going to get enough points that's going to allow you to contend. So for me personally, for this one, I am starting my roster construction, my MVP with Joel Embiid. So that takes $54 off the top right here. That leaves us with what? We already said I can't do a ton of math. That's $96 the rest of the way. Now, the next play that I want to go to, and again, I did a little bit of research while I was before we started recording today to try to find out some of like the high upside plays that caps are like crazy mispriced. And if we go to A-Town down, Trae Young, down in Atlanta. We've already moved DeJounte Murray. He is now a New Orleans Pelican. Trae Young's cap is 33 right now. Now, peak Trae, that cap is probably high 40s, low 50s, right? We've seen it all over the place. You now take away the offensive facilitation and shots from DeJounte Murray. Clearly, Atlanta is not going to be super competitive this year. I think I'm going to start my first play in for this lineup is going to be Trae Young. So that's an Embiid Trae Young start. We take another $22. We'll round to $21, $22 off the board. So that's going to round us up to, I don't know, what is that? 76, I think, off the top of my head. I should have wrote it down one by one as we go instead of doing the full cap. But anyways, that gives us Joel Embiid and Trae Young. And honestly, that's kind of like two MVPs in the same lineup just to get started. I also think because of the cap of 33, buying Trae right now, maybe he does go down a little bit more as the offseason cooks, but he is going to be one of like the primary plays that you're going to need to succeed probably for the first month of year 3 of So Rare, because again, that Atlanta team's going to be bad. The offense is his again now. He's going to be getting a lot of shots up. He's probably going to be averaging something like 25 and 12. So I really like Trae Young. I also want to, I'm not including him in this lineup, but I want to give a quick shout out to, and you guys know how I feel about those Bogdanoviches, Bogdanovich, who now is like slated in to be the two guard, right? The starting two guard with no DeJounte Murray. They haven't really brought in anybody else. Now, Bogdan could get moved. They could bring in some other young guys. Maybe they give Kobe Buffkin a little bit more run. But I think Bogdan, at least early on in the season, is somewhat solid. So there we go. That is our first start here with Joel Embiid and then Trae Young. And next, we're going to go to the Bear. Yes, chef. Ja Morant. Ja Morant, who pulled out some guns, then pulled out some hamstrings, or I forget what the injury was, but missed the last part or most of last season. His cap's at 43, and he's priced at $38, right? So now, right now, looking at this lineup, if we start with Ja Morant, Trae Young, and Joel Embiid, that's like 3 straight up MVPs in your roster already to go, right? We're already cooking with those 3. I really like that start. Again, you've heard me talk on other shows. I'm pretty high on Memphis heading into next season. I just think they are angry, right? They were freaking the 2 seed in the West not too long ago, or the 3 seed. I can't remember what it was that year. They were so good, and then they just got bit by the injury bug, by Ja's dumbness. I mean, right? They lost Marcus Smart for a while, Desmond Bane for a while, Brandon Clark for most of the season. I think they're going to come out. I think they're going to be angry. I think Ja Morant's going to remind us that he was like in MVP conversations for a little bit. I mean, he even did it in like the 2 games that he came back. His first game back after that injury last year was a game winner against the Pels. So I'm really high on Ja as well. And again, that gives us 3 like legit MVPs to start in Joel Embiid. We've got Trae Young, and now Ja Morant. Now, next up, there's going to be a lot of jokes made in this one, and rightfully so. Josh Giddey. You insert the joke here, a cap of 17. So Josh Giddey has left the Oklahoma City Thunder. His value could not be worse at this point, just from the fan perspective, because we watch him not be useful in the playoffs, right? He straight up got played off, stopped. He was no longer in the starting rotation, then was only playing like 10 minutes a game. But Josh Giddey, like, historically puts up great numbers. And now we're putting him on a bad team in the Chicago Bulls, who are most likely going to be without DeMar DeRozan. And if DeRozan leaves, the Bulls have already indicated that they're going to try to move Zach LaVine, although the NBA has pretty much said, hey, we're not interested in the value of Zach LaVine. And they also said they'd be moving Nikola Vucevic if that happens as well. So this is going to be one of those like bad team, good stats type guys. Josh Giddey's career, He's averaged 14 points, 7 boards, almost 6 dimes a game. And now you remove Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. He's gonna get a lot more. Like, the ball is going to roll through Josh Giddey. His cap is only 17, and now because we've spent so much money on Embiid, on Ja Morant, and on Trae Young, we're now doing a little salary saving here. This is a $6 card, a cap of 17, and like, his cap honestly is probably gonna be in the mid 30s range starting in like late November, right? So I think we're now getting ahead of it. We're getting a really good value play who's clearly mispriced in the cap for only $6. I really like Josh Giddey. I wish his cap was 18 so we wouldn't have to make the joke that everybody's going to make right now, but 17 and under for Josh Giddey. But there we go. So that's our fourth one. We need one more play to get us cooking to round out this lineup. Again, I'm feeling pretty good about this. We've got Embiid with a $54 price tag, Ja Morant a cap of 43 with a $38 price tag, Trae Young with a cap of 33 with a $31 price tag, and then Josh Giddey with a cap of 17. Now for this and a $6 price tag, excuse me. That leaves us with, I believe, 27 in the cap range. So we'll look at this together. There were 3 plays that stood out to me. We have this. I'm going to just scroll over. I think it's 2 or 3 pages here just so we can look at that 27 and under range together. Yeah, I think it starts here, right? So the first name that pops out, like, okay, here's the cutoff right here. Come on, baby. Okay, I was wrong. We had to go one more page. Sorry about that, gang. Looking at this right now. So it starts with, we just missed on Rudy Gobert, who I do want to give a shout out. We might be using him in our contender lineup. I can't remember, but he's got a cap of 28. That's a little bit mispriced. Honestly, it should be high 30s. I really kind of like what Rudy can do, especially with the blocks and steals. But anyways, we start with 27, Tobias Harris, Shemezi Metu, and Brandon Ingram. I do want to get Nembhard as well. I want to give Brandon Ingram a little bit of love here. I just don't know what team he's going to be on. That, whether he gets traded or not, his cap should probably be in like the high 30s, right? It's because he came back from injury and played poorly. So I think you could absolutely put Ingram in this for $6, would still get us under the budget, right? I don't think I'm going to go with Brandon Ingram, but let's give him a shout. The 3 players that stood out to me, Jalen Duren of the Detroit Pistons. We saw some crazy upside from Jalen Duren early on, and he was awesome. Then he got hurt. And then he slowly came back, had some upside, but also had some floor games as well. They have the new coach. Monty Williams is gone. The vibes seem better in Detroit. So I do really like Jalen Duren. Cap of 26, you can get him for $6. But this seems nuts to me. Jeremy Grant, I don't know what Portland's going to do right now, but Jeremy Grant's cap is down to 26. I know Grant doesn't really fill up the peripheral stats, right? He just kind of gets you like 30 and 6 or something like that. But that will do. 30 and 6 would do if we could get it from him. The Blazers, right? They made the move for Denny Avdia. It sounds like there are going to be more players on their way out. So I'm not necessarily thrilled about Jeremy Grant, but a cap of 26, like, that's a safety. He's going to get you. He is going to outplay that cap. But it does sound like Simons could be on the move. If anyone wants to eat that Jeremy Grant contract, he could be on the move as well. I don't know who Jeremy Grant goes to that makes him a better fantasy play. I could only see him kind of going to a contender, but we'll have to wait and see how the Blazers handle it. And they might not try to move him until February. And if that's the case, you're looking at Scoot out there. Simons is going to be out there for a little bit. You're going to see some Shaedon Sharpe who's back in action. But again, Jeremy Grant, cap of 26, I don't mind it. But here's where I landed. I landed a little bit lower than that, with a cap of 25. Everybody play the song. My name is Jonas. He's going for $3.40 right now. He has a cap of 25. So Jonas Valanciunas might be in a Pelicans jersey right now, but he was traded to signed, a 10-year, $30 million contract with the Washington Wizards. I don't know what Washington is doing. They had a lot of draft picks early to start this year. However, I do think that is still a tradable contract. 10 years ago. That is not a tradable contract. 3 years, $10 million. I could see a team that is like lacking a big, maybe making a move for him towards the towards the All-Star break. However, Jonas Valanciunas, I imagine, is going to start. Like, I know they took Sar with the first overall or second overall pick. I know that they have some other big men, like Bagley's there still. They re-signed Rashawn Holmes. But if Jonas is playing on a bad team and he's playing 25 minutes a game, I mean, he's gonna go like 14 and 12 in that time, right? So I do kind of like Jonas Valanciunas a little bit. I think that is where I'm going to land with this lineup. We can scroll a little bit more and see if anybody else sticks out. You got Naz Reid. Chris Paul is kind of interesting with the cap of 24 going to San Antonio, playing with Wemby. It should be easy for him to average like 12, 13 times a game, even if he's only playing 28 to 32 minutes. That's one that I'm not excited to play right away, but something that I'll continue to monitor. We'll go to the top of the next page, see if there's anything else that pops out here before we move on. Ben Simmons, could it be Ben Simmons season? Brandon Pajemski is probably worth a shout, and so is Derek Lively, both with caps of 23. A little bit more expensive, however, we could still fit it in our budget. But for the sake of this lineup, this is going to be the final tally. The final tally for our limited champion lineup, we have Embiid is our MVP, a cap of 56, a $54 spend. And again, when you compare him to some of those other MVPs, he's got that same ceiling and is way cheaper. You got Ja Morant, who I said cap of 43 with a cap of 43 with a cost of $38. Trae Young, who again is probably the steal of all of this, and we're going to try to force him into our contender lineup. Josh Giddey with a cap of 17 for $6. And then I'm going to go with Jonas Valanciunas. But as I said, your kind of pick of Jalen Duren, Jeremy Grant, Jonas Valanciunas. Honestly, when this video is over, do me a favor in the comment. Like, who are you taking for that last spot if you like this lineup? We're going to move to contender. Contender is going to be a little bit quicker because we're going to replay some of those guys that we threw in that squad. So, I didn't even say, I'm sorry. The champion lineup went for a total of $133. So we stayed $17 under the cap. And I think we left if we went with Jonas Valanciunas, we left ourselves with 2 cap points as well. So that's pretty good. But let's go over to our contender lineup again. For these restrictions, we got to stay under $100. All right. So we're starting with Ja Morant again. I'm putting Ja in there because I found some value, guys, that I'm excited. So there's 3 guys from the champ lineup that I'm going to put in the contender lineup: Ja Morant, Trae Young, Josh Giddey. Okay, so Ja with the cap of 43. Now, remember, we can still go up to 120, but we have no MVP. So we got Ja with 43 and Trae with 33. That puts us at 76. And then we add the 17 of Josh Giddey, which puts us at 93, I believe. And I can't do that math off the top of my head. Let's see if I can. Does that leave us with 120 minus 93? God, that's 27. That leaves us with 27, right? So here we go. I am kind of excited about these 2 plays. I talked about one of them in another video. So the Knicks now are without Hartenstein's gone. He's over in the Oklahoma City Thunder. So he's gone. Their bigs right now are Mitchell Robinson, Jericho Sims, and somebody I haven't heard of. Now, they still have a little bit of wiggle room based on the deals that were signed over the 4th of July, where they like move some picks around. Shake Milton is gone, a part of the trade. So Robinson might not be the starter. I mean, I think he's going to be the starter, but he might not be clear cut that he's going to play all those minutes. Of course, Mitch Rob has some concerns because the dude gets hurt a lot. But when he is out there, he is a blocks and boards machine. Like on blocks, rebounds, and steals alone, he's going to outkick his cap, right? He's going to clearly cover 16 with no problem. And then if you get lucky and it's one of those games where he puts up 12 to 14 points, like actual points on top of it, now you've hit your ceiling. So I really like Mitchell Robinson. So I'm going to throw him in here with a cap of 16. What did we say? We had 27 left. So that leaves us 11. What I'm going to do first is show you who I went to, and then we can look on the market together to see if there's someone else. But I'm going to go to Xavier Tillman, who re-signed with the Celtics for a vet minimum, I believe, for a 2-year vet min deal, which I was really surprised. He's got a cap of 10. He's only $2.70. So the reason being for this call is that our guy Porzingis is out until January. He successfully had surgery after the championship, but he's going to be out. I don't see the Celtics rushing them back. And Al Horford is going to be a year older, and he was already old. And they did re-sign Luke Cornett and Neemias Queta as well. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. However, I think Tillman's going to be the guy that's most likely to soak up. He's like a good innings eater. We saw he get some run there in that playoff run for Joe Mazzulla. So I just kind of like, for a cap of 10, I like taking a shot on somebody like Xavier Tillman, who I do think is going to earn more minutes early on in the season. I also think Tillman could be a guy that you play for like 2 game weeks. Hopefully he outperforms, and then you just sell him, because at some point it's gonna not be as great. Let's see if we can filter this a little bit. And I wish I had it filtered before we started talking about it, but we'll do it here. Can we get 10 game average? There we go. Let's do 10 and under. 10 and under. Let's see what we got here. So we talked about Xavier Tillman. Let's see if there's any other names that pop out. Jay Crowder, who unfortunately is probably going to be in a bigger role. You know who I would throw out there? Markel Fultz. I don't know who he's going to play for. I believe he's still a free agent right now. Rumors of him actually signing a deal with Philly. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but Markel Fultz is someone that we could keep an eye on here. Svi Mahulik. No, I don't think that's a play. So as you can see, it's kind of tough here. Sasha Vezenkov, who like literally he got traded to the Raptors, but there's rumors he might not go to Toronto, that he's going to stay in Europe. However, the Raptors would have to waive him for that to happen. So who knows? Again, Xavier Tillman seems to be the name that makes the most sense. You could also get Luke Cornett over there for a 9. Kira Lewis Jr., you can't use him. I still want him to be useful. Tim Hardaway Jr. is on his way to Detroit. Maybe they let him just run around and shoot a bunch of buckets or something like that. I don't know. Jayshawn Derulo-Tate, Jalen Smith, who found a new home in Chicago. We could give him a shout for 8, but I think we'll call it there. So for this lineup, let's do a quick recap of the contender lineup. We've got Ja Morant with a cap of 43, costing us $38. Trae Young with a cap of 33, costing us $31. We got Josh Giddey with a cap of 17, costing us $6. We got Mitch Robb with a cap of 16, costing us $6. And then last but not least, the X-Man, Xavier Tillman, with a cap of 10, costing us $2.70. I rounded up a little bit just because I don't want to do cents here. This contender lineup is going to cost us $84, but it's going to win us rewards, baby. All right, there you have it. That is our breakdown of our champion lineups and our contender lineups. I hope you guys found this helpful or useful. I think it's a good exercise when thinking about roster construction and like what players pop at what budget. We'll do this again, definitely for Rare in the coming weeks. If you guys have any thoughts or an idea that you would like to see done in an off-season video, definitely let us know. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And if you made it this far without subscribing and hitting the notification bell, honestly, what are you doing?